You hear a sound in the dark. Something small. A creak. A rustle. A shift in the air just behind you. And before you can think, before any conscious process activates, your body has already reacted. Pulse up. Skin prickling. Every hair on your arms raised. And somewhere in the back of your mind, one question forms. Is something there? Here is what nobody tells you about that feeling. It is not fear. It is not superstition. It is not your imagination running away from you in the dark. It is one of the most precisely engineered survival systems your body possesses. And the reason it produces the specific experience of ghosts, of the dead, of the invisible, of something watching, is one of the strangest and most illuminating stories in all of human evolutionary science. Let us start with a fact that should make you deeply uncomfortable. In 2006, a neuroscientist named Olaf Blanke at EPFL in Switzerland was running an experiment on a patient with epilepsy. He was applying a small electrical current to a precise region of her brain, the left temporoparietal junction, the area that tracks body ownership and your sense of where you are in space. And the moment the current activated, the patient said something that stopped the experiment. There is someone behind me. Someone is standing right behind me. Nobody was behind her. But she was certain. She described the presence with absolute conviction. When she leaned forward, the presence leaned forward with her. When she turned, it turned. She became so distressed she asked them to stop. When they stopped the current, the presence vanished instantly. Let that land for a moment. By stimulating one specific cluster of neurons, the researchers had created a ghost. Not a belief in ghosts, not a fear of ghosts, an actual, immediate, viscerally convincing experience of an invisible presence. In a hospital, in broad daylight, in a person who had been fully cooperative and rational until 10 seconds earlier. This means ghost experiences are not a product of darkness or fear or culture or a weak mind. They are a predictable, reproducible neurological output. Trigger the right circuit, in anyone, believer or skeptic, and you get a ghost. But why does that circuit exist at all? And why does it fire so easily? Here is where it gets even stranger. Your brain is not a passive receiver of the world. It is an active interpreter, running constant background predictions about what might be in your environment. And one of its oldest and most powerful background systems is what researchers call the agent detection system, a neural mechanism that evolved specifically to detect the presence of other beings, predators, rivals, threats, even in ambiguous, low-information conditions. This system has a built-in bias that is critical to understand. It is designed to produce false positives. A rustle in the grass that is actually just wind costs you nothing if you mistake it for a predator. A rustle in the grass that is actually a leopard, which you dismiss as wind, costs you everything. Over hundreds of thousands of years, your ancestors who were most prone to seeing agents that were not there survived at higher rates than those who were most likely to dismiss ambiguous signals. Cognitive psychologist Justin Barrett at Oxford called the result of this a hyperactive agency detection device. Hyperactive because it fires at almost any ambiguous stimulus. In shadows. In sounds. In the feeling of being watched in an empty room. In a reflection that moved wrong. And what is a ghost if not the exact output of a hyperactive agent detection system running at full speed in the dark? But here is the counterintuitive twist that almost every ghost discussion misses entirely. You might assume ghost fear is something we grow out of, a childish belief that fades with rational development. It is actually the opposite. Research by developmental psychologist Jacqueline Woolley at the University of Texas shows that very young children, toddlers, 3-year-olds, are not typically afraid of ghosts. They may believe in them. They may think of them as neutral or even friendly. The genuine dread, the cold fear in an empty room, emerges specifically in early adolescence. And the reason is this. Ghost fear requires you to simultaneously understand that death is real and permanent, and to maintain a vivid simulation of the dead person's continuing mind. Children under about 4 years old have neither of those cognitive tools yet. They cannot fear ghosts because they do not yet have the mental architecture required to construct the experience. Ghost fear does not belong to the childish brain. It belongs to the brain that has just woken up to its own mortality. Now let us talk about something that was discovered by accident in a laboratory that everyone said was haunted. Vic Tandy was an engineer at Coventry University in the late 1990s. He was working alone one night in a lab that had a reputation among the staff for being deeply unsettling. People reported feeling watched. Some reported seeing shadowy figures. One staff member had quit and cited the lab specifically. Tandy himself began to feel an inexplicable dread. And then he noticed something. The foil blade of a fencing sword he had clamped upright in a vise was vibrating, heavily, on its own. He investigated and found that the lab's extraction fan was generating a standing wave of infrasound, sound below the threshold of human hearing, at a frequency of exactly 18.98 Hz. This specific frequency causes the human eyeball to resonate. It produces peripheral visual disturbances. It generates a profound, inexplicable sense of unease and the conviction that something is present. When Tandy traced the infrasound source and addressed it, the haunting stopped. He then investigated a reportedly haunted cellar in Coventry's Tourist Information Center, found the same infrasound signature, traced it to a resonant architectural feature, and documented the same result. Old stone buildings, churches, tunnels, underground passages. These environments regularly produce infrasound through air movement and architectural resonance. The ghost, in many of these cases, is the building, vibrating at a frequency your ears cannot hear, but your eyes and nervous system register as terror. So let us now put these pieces together and reconstruct what was actually happening to your ancestors. Someone in the band has died. Someone you knew. Someone whose habits and expressions and intentions you had modeled in precise detail for years, because your survival depended on accurately predicting the behavior of everyone around you. And the modeling system does not stop when they die. It keeps running. You dream about them. You sense their presence at familiar locations. You feel, in an inexplicable and convincing way, that they are still somehow there. Now add the agent detection system. You are moving through a dark landscape with genuine mortal risk from predators and rival groups. The agent detection system fires at every ambiguous signal. The social modeling system generates the dead person's simulation. The brain does what brains do. It combines these inputs into the most coherent interpretation it can construct. It places the dead person in the dark. The ghost is not a superstition. It is the brain's best explanation for two systems firing simultaneously. And here is the piece that should genuinely stop you cold. Archaeological evidence from sites spanning prehistoric Europe to ancient China shows something extraordinary. Cultures with zero contact with each other, separated by thousands of miles and thousands of years, independently developed identical practices for what we can only describe as ghost-proofing the dead. Binding feet so the corpse could not walk. Placing heavy stones directly on bodies. Driving stakes through graves. Sealing tomb entrances with specific materials. These practices did not spread through cultural contact. They appeared independently on multiple continents because every human brain was running the same system and reaching the same conclusion. The dead might come back, and something needed to be done about it. At Neolithic Çatalhöyük in Turkey, excavations found skulls removed from bodies and plastered, a practice interpreted as controlling specific powerful dead. In medieval England, dozens of revenant burials have been found with stones in mouths and deliberately severed limbs. The practices are different in their specifics. They are identical in their logic. Here is the counterintuitive twist that reframes everything. Ghost fear is not universal. The sense of presence of the dead is. Across sub-Saharan Africa, East Asia, and Polynesia, cultures with strong ancestor veneration traditions report the dead as equally vivid and present as any haunted culture. but the fear is dramatically reduced or absent. Because the cultural framework has coded the dead as known, trusted agents with continuing social obligations to the living. The brain still generates the ghost. What changes is whether the ghost is classified as a threat. In Japan, the Obon festival specifically invites ancestor spirits back and is a celebration. The same neural hardware. A completely different output. Because the relationship framework has answered the question the agent detection system is always asking. Does this presence intend me harm? Without that framework, the brain defaults to its most ancient setting, unknown agent, unknown intention, unlocated in space, maximum alertness, which is also why the specific fear response to ghosts is not fight or flight. It is freezing, paralysis, hypervigilant stillness, because fight or flight is calibrated for a visible, located threat. But when an agent's location is unknown, running could move you directly toward it. Freezing reduces your detection. It is the prey response, and the fact that ghosts specifically trigger the prey response, not the predator response, tells you exactly what the ancient brain classifies them as. Something that could be anywhere. Something you cannot see. Something you cannot locate. And when you cannot locate the threat, the only safe move is to go still and wait. Now think about the last time you felt that inexplicable sense of presence in an empty room. The hair rising, the certainty that lasted half a second before reason arrived. You were not being irrational. You were running a system so old it predates language. A system built to keep your ancestors alive in a world where missing the presence of something that intended them harm was a fatal error. The question your brain asked in that fraction of a second is the oldest question it knows. Is something there? 300,000 years ago, in the dark outside a small fire, your ancestors asked it too. Some of the things they were afraid of were real. Some of them were the dead. Some of them were the building vibrating at the wrong frequency. Some of them were their own brains misfiring under pressure and isolation. The brain, running its ancient and imperfect systems, could not always tell the difference. Neither can yours. You hear a sound in the dark. Your body reacts before you can think. That is not weakness. That is 300,000 years of your ancestors surviving nights exactly like this one, by never, ever assuming the answer was nothing.